and welcome. My name is Carmen Gores. I am co-chair of the Kent Chamber of Commerce Government Affairs Committee. I wear many hats, I get confused sometimes. So I am pleased to welcome you this evening, and on behalf of the Auburn Area Chamber, Covington Chamber, and Kent Chambers of Commerce, we are here to support the election process by hearing from our senatorial candidates. And before we start, I want to give out many thank yous of those that make this happen. First, Life Victory Church here. They've created a very welcoming environment for us. South King Media, I Love Kent. They were live streaming, but we are going to record and send it out a little bit later. Thank you for your media coverage. Braver Angels, they worked on the polling and preparation of the questions. They are a citizens organization uniting Americans in a working alliance to depolarize politics. And also the last but not least is our thank you this evening to our moderator, Renee Radcliffe Sinclair. And before she comes up, I want to tell you a little bit about Renee. It's funny, I asked her for a bio which says, you can cut it short because I'm old. So she's done a lot of things, but it's not too short. So Renee is the president and CEO of TVW, Washington's national award-winning public affairs media network. They provide unfiltered, unedited, gavel-to-gavel television and web streaming coverage of the Washington Legislature, Supreme Court, executive branch, state boards and commissions, elections, and public policy events of statewide significance. Prior to joining TVW, Renee spent 14 years as a journalist, followed by 4 successful elections to the Washington State House of Representatives. So she's been through this process many times. Since retiring from public office, she has served in policy leadership roles and volunteered with several local government, humanitarian, and workforce efforts, and continues to serve her community through a variety of policy-related, community-based activities such as this. She is well able to moderate tonight, and I look forward to turning this over to her for a great evening. Let's welcome Renee.
Thank you, Carmen, and welcome this evening to everyone. The speaking order of the candidates has been determined by a flip of the coin that happened just a few minutes ago. Claudia, I believe you won that toss and have elected to go first. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Before we do that, I just want to share a little bit about how the debate is going to flow this evening. With the limited time we have, each candidate will be given 2 minutes for opening and closing statements. The candidates will have 90 seconds to respond to each question. In addition, candidates will have a minute for rebuttal. At my discretion, there may be some follow-up questions to clarify some answers. And Carmen, right down here, will be our timekeeper. Candidates, once the question is read, your clock begins. You will see a yellow card at 30 seconds and a red card when your time is up. In addition, as Carmen has already mentioned, I want you to know that in preparation for tonight's debate, we consulted our friends at Braver Angels, and you see them all over this building. Braver Angels is concerned about civic health, and even though we might not always agree on the answer, sometimes we can agree on the question. And in anticipation of this debate, Braver Angels put together some ground rules for us to think about. We will ask the candidates to avoid using Democrats and Republicans except in reference to actions taken by public officials within a specific government body. Reference the government body in question within your answer. Cite your sources. Direct criticism at actions rather than intentions. Talk only about your own values. Do not discuss your opponent's values. Avoid stereotypes, jargon, and platitudes. Avoid interruptions and crosstalk. And for you audience members, we're going to ask you to observe and learn from the candidates to gain a better understanding of local issues, not to support or oppose any particular candidate or what they say. Please keep comments to yourselves and limit your support to applause only. No vocalizations, please. Also, please silence your cell phone. There's nothing worse than answering a question and having a cell phone go off. We want to make certain that each candidate is able to focus on responding to questions and each other, uninterrupted by noise from devices in the audience. Okay. A little more about Braver Angels. They are concerned with civic health. They believe candidate debates serve an important role in the democratic process because they provide an opportunity for voters to hear a direct contrast between the candidates' perspectives on the issues that matter most to them. Over the past several weeks, Braver Angels has developed a model called Community Questions that includes surveying the general public, in this case in the 47th District, about what they think the most important issues are in this community. The Braver Angels Community Questions model uses a ranked choice ballot to poll the public on the 4 most pressing issues facing the community. Then, in a 2-hour moderated conversation, members of the community discuss a variety of different questions to pose to our candidates. Tonight, we'll be incorporating some of those community questions into our debate. But let's start with opening statements from each candidate. And Claudia, you are going first.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you to everyone for hosting this event. Thank you for the church for allowing us to be in this space. And we appreciate the opportunity for inclusion. I'm Claudia Kauffman, and I am running for the State Senate on the 47th Legislative District. I grew up in Seattle, the youngest of 7 children, in a small 3-bedroom home. And we grew up with some basic values. You take care of your children, you have respect for your elders, and you serve your community. And growing up with these values, it was always involved in serving community. I was volunteering at food banks and clothing banks when I was 7 years old. When I was 9 years old, I made up a campaign sign for someone with cardboard and crayons. Always being involved, always taking care. And growing up with those values, they are critical to who I am in serving community. When I became an adult, I became a foster parent. And I was a foster parent to 10 teenage girls. And that was an amazing experience. And it's been wonderful to see them grow and to have children of their own. And so having this experience, always wanting to make room for more kids. There's always room for a child in our household. So growing up with those values, I continued my service in working in government relations for the past 22 years. I'm a former state senator. I've served on the board of trustees of Green River College, as well as a number of statewide and countywide and citywide boards and commissions and task force. So I come here with a wealth of experience and understanding, and will certainly hit the ground running when elected to the state senate.
Thank you for sharing your opening statement. And Bill, you're up next.
Hey, thank you very much, and thank you everyone for being here tonight. I want to also especially thank the Kent Covenant and Auburn Chamber and Bravery Angels for putting this on. Really appreciate you guys for putting this on. Also, to the Life Victory Church for having us here tonight. My name is Bill Boyce, and I'm running for State Senator for the 47th District. Also, I want to thank my wife back in the back for being here as well too. So thank you, Debbie, for showing. I running for the State Senate for many reasons. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a good old Southern boy, born and raised in the state of North Carolina. After high school, I watched my parents struggle to put my 2 elder sister and brother in college. I didn't want to put that burden on them. Talked to my dad. And he suggested I go in the military. He thought it'd be a good route for me to go. So I decided to serve my country. I joined the military, the Urban Ranger paratrooper stationed on Fort Lewis. After my tour of duty on Fort Lewis, I just fell in love with this great state of Washington, so I decided to stay here. So I stayed here, and then I eventually met my wife. We got married. We got 5 beautiful kids. We got 6 grandkids, and we really enjoyed spending time with a family. I am a true family man. A little bit about myself also. After beginning to have kids, getting involved into what's going on in the city of Kent, I decided to run for the Kent School Board. I spent 16 years on the school board, and after that, I've been on Kent City Council now for 12 years. In addition to that, I serve on the Harbor Group Board of Trustees as well as the chair of the San Jose City Association. I will talk a little more about why I'm running, but there's a lot of things going on in this state that I think that we need to talk about, and hope we get an opportunity to share some thoughts on how we can do what I call course correction and make Washington State the state that it should be. Thank you.
Thank you. You've both done really well with time so far. And we're done with the easy stuff now. Let's talk about, first up, public safety. From gang shootings to King County's purchase of the Clarion Hotel in Auburn to house homeless individuals from around the county, to concerns about safe injection sites, drug use, and crime in and around homeless encampments, we all have concerns about our public safety. At the same time, our community questions participants also express concerns about police excess. What will you do as a state senator to ensure police have the resources necessary to prevent and prosecute crimes in our area? And Bill, we're going to start with you.
Thank you so much. I think we all can say that we have been impacted by crime, or you know someone has been impacted by crime over the last couple of years. I think a lot had to do with the Blake decision that was made that have caused crime to go up. We got property tax at an all-time high. We got violent crime at an all-time high, burglary at an all-time high. And I think it all relates back into the Blake bill. At the end of the day, I strongly feel that we should give the police the authority and the tools to do their job. That's number one. I also believe we need to hold police accountable. When you don't do your job, or you go outside your job, you need to be held accountable. You get held accountable at your job, I get held at my accountable job. I strongly believe that almost 98% of our police officers mean well and want to do the right job. I have had the opportunity to serve on the Washington Criminal Justice Training System appointed by Democrat Governor Gary Locke. First citizen ever served on that. I served 16 years on that, and I had the opportunity to watch our police officers train. I did ride-alongs, and I know what they go through. So for me, we need to make sure they have the tools to do the job. The homeless encampment, the city of Kent recently took up an ordinance to really try to clean up some of our homeless encampment for, helping them with their mental health or drug addiction and putting them in the shelter. So we need to make sure we find a place for them to live, take care of the mental health, take care of the drug addiction, and put them into a shelter so they can have a good life and move on and become productive members of society. Thank you.
Thank you. Claudia, would you like me to repeat the question?
Well, it was a very long introduction, and then the question was,
What will you do as a state senator to ensure police have the resources necessary to prevent and prosecute crimes in our state?
well, police officers on the local level are governed by the local level. The Kent Police Department is governed by the city of Kent. In the Washington State Legislature, they govern the Washington State Patrol, which are two completely different sources, two completely different revenue streams, two completely different accountability measures. And ensuring that police officers have the tools and resources to do their jobs is vitally important, but we also need to not replace any accountability measures to ensure that our civil rights and our local community members feel safe. We all want to feel safe walking to school or going to our business and not have broken windows. We want to be able to make sure our kids come home from school without having any other bullying or tactics. And mental health, public safety, they are linked in so many different manners. And we also need to have address homelessness in a manner that is inclusive, so we're not excluding options and opportunities. There can be shelters, there can be tiny homes, there can be hotels, there can be creating affordable workforce housing. Family housing is important to address the issues that our communities face. But we as a community need to feel safe and know that the police officers will respond.
Thank you. And so, Claudia, you've already touched on this a little bit, but what do you believe are some reasonable steps that can be taken to ensure adequate police oversight while improving safety for residents in all communities?
Well, getting back to that, I think you're talking about the Blake decision. I think that's what you're referring to. And I think that we need to address this in a number of ways, and one is to look at the court system, the justice system, and enforce more treatment options and enforce more treatment requirements within the sentencing, and have the legislature respond. You know, the Blake decision came out and the legislature responded very quickly. And I think a review of that response and having more people involved in that includes stakeholders of the police and the community and the justice system so that we can create a more inclusive response.
Actually, I think this question is referring to not only the Blake decision, but recent actions by the legislature to deal with police excess and use of force. Do you want to address that just briefly?
So you're talking about the police reform?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, yes.
I think both issues. Yeah.
So that's really important that we have police reform taking place. I think it is decades overdue. And we certainly don't want to go back to watching videos like George Floyd coming up on the news every other day. And so it's important that we have transparency, we have accountability, we have smart, data-driven decisions and policies that address accountability in a high-speed pursuit. Most people injured are the innocent bystanders, innocent people, another car just driving by. And so we need to balance accountability with also law enforcement, and so that the police officers can do their duties in a responsible manner.
Thank you. Bill, do you need the question again?
No, I'm good.
Okay, good.
I do want to make clear the Blake decision is not for the state patrol. Blake decision is for all police officers, okay? That includes the city of Kent, so I want to make sure we're clear on that. There was a whole group of people talking about defunding the police, and that was happening years ago. And I understand that the George Floyd, and we all feel for that. We don't want that to happen to anyone, regardless, right? And I strongly believe some decisions made with reform went just a little too far. When you talk about making drugs legal, fentanyl, meth, right? That's part of the problem. And that was probably some of the things when they took away some of the police authority, that was causing some of the high crime that we're having today. I know for a fact in the city of Kent, we cannot respond to some of the issues because fentanyl and meth and so on is legal. So you have them doing that stuff on the street, it causes problems, it causes crime, it's caused property theft and so on. So I believe it went too far. I know when they put this bill in place, they did not reach out to all of the police officers as a chief. I think they need to be able to have input. You're going to put something in place that's going to impact the city or impact people. You need to make sure you have all the subject matter expert people around so you can make that decision. A lot of police chiefs were not at the table when the decision was made, and I think right now there will be some correction going on because I think people begin to see the issues and the problem with crime. Everybody from Seattle to Kent saying, hey, crime is a problem and they're trying to correct it right now. Thank you.
Thank you, and that's a great segue to our next issue, which is the fact that police agencies around the state have expressed concern about House Bill 1310 limiting their ability to intervene in cases of mental health crises. There is clearly an intersection of homelessness, mental illness, and criminality. So Bill, as a state senator, what steps will you take to address the mental health crisis that we witness in our streets on a daily basis?
Well, I strongly believe that this all don't fall on the police officer hand, right? I strongly believe that we need to have citizens that could quite do right along with police officers. I know the city of Kent with Arizona not too long ago to kind of look at some of the things they have in place. So if you go on to a case, and it could be police related, if it's not a serious crime, it is a mental health or drug addiction, then they have the other agency come in and take place to try to work with that and not use the police officer resource to do that. So I strongly believe that mental health is a serious issue that we need to deal with. I don't believe the police officer needs necessarily be the front person to deal with it, but we need to have agencies in place to try to help the people with the mental health and addiction, for us, put them in the right place for treatment for the mental health, put them in the right place for addiction. As I said earlier, let's work hard to try to get them in a shelter. Let's work hard to try to help them get a job. And when you assign an agency with them, it's not like a one and done. But on some of my campaigns, we talked to one lady that her son had been in a treatment 14 different times. But to put them in, to take them out, to put them in, to take them out. We need to show we put them in, once they come out, let's make sure we have an agency with them to kind of work with them to help them get through all of their treatment and get them going in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Claudia, as a state senator, what steps will you take to address the mental health crisis that we witness in our streets on a daily basis?
Yes, and thank you. The mental health crisis is more than just on our streets. Mental health issues are within our communities, within our households, in every sense. And Washington State has mental health facilities, and we need to invest in that. Washington State is being fined every year, every month, for not providing all the adequate services that they are required to provide. An investment in the state, at the very basic level of the state mental health facilities, is critical. When you come down to mental health issues, increased mental health service providers providing wraparound services to individuals to address the root cause of mental health, and that would include options for housings and options for health care and options for daycare or child care, and what's happening and how can we help them out. And a mental health crisis, I think mental health issue and mental health crisis, I think crisis is a really step above than just people who need mental health services. And so we need to hire additional officers, we need to hire additional mental health services workers to work with officers, we need to look and coordinate with housing options and provide resources and support to individuals and to families.
Thank you. And Claudia, hold on to that mic. How can we best balance meeting the needs of individuals in crisis with respecting their civil rights?
Well, when it comes to, if you're referring back to interactions with police, or you're referring to interactions with
Mental health professionals.
mental health professionals?
Everyone, yes. How do we balance public safety and civil rights?
And, public safety and civil rights. So we need to ensure that we respond in a manner that meets the situation and not escalate the situation. Mental health issues and crises can be escalated and things can be triggered within an individual, and we need to take a calm approach to working in the mental health area so that we have the public safety and address the issues that are causing it.
Thank you. Bill, how can we best balance meeting the needs of individuals in crisis with respecting their civil rights?
I think at the end of the day, we have to show compassion. I think compassion is the key. Once again, I want to refer to the ordinance that we put in place in the city of Kent about at our last council meeting. And it's really about showing compassion, going out to some of these encampment areas and talking to the police, talking to the people who's in their encampment. Our police officer have a good relationship with a lot of these people in their encampment area because they have seen them and visited them so many times. So show compassion to them. At the end of the day, there are some people who need help and don't know how to get help. And everybody that may be in their encampment may want help and take it right away, and it may take 3 or 4 times to get it. But eventually, at the end of the day, we want to make sure to say, hey, there is a better place. People living in the wood with mental health, that's not what we want for our society. That's just not right, and that's not a good thing. So we're going to do everything we can, as I did at the city level, at the state level, to go out, reach out to them, show them these are the programs that we have for you, take them out to the court system, make sure they understand the mental health issues, make sure they understand the addiction that they can get the help with, and as I said earlier, show them a shelter. At the end of the day, we want to be compassionate. If you're compassionate with people and let them know you're really here to help, then I think the civil rights issues and so on, most people will be willing to accept that help. Maybe not the first time, maybe not the second time, but eventually they will accept that help.
Okay, moving on to another easy topic, the one of inflation. With volatile gas prices, supply chain shortages, and inflation driving food prices more than 10% higher than they were last year, our community has concerns about the affordability of commuting, electric vehicles and their practicality, and ongoing supply chain issues and their impact on the availability of fresh groceries across the 47th district. So let's talk a little about what you can do as a state senator to help alleviate the pain of inflation. First, in Washington State, 49 cents per gallon of the price we pay at the gas pump goes toward state taxes. That's the second highest in the nation. While the community understands we need this to pay for road maintenance and preservation, they also recognize this is not a sustainable strategy. So, Bill, the state legislature recently passed and the governor signed into law the climate commitment tax, which is estimated by the Washington Policy Center to raise gas prices by as much as another 46 cents per gallon. As a state senator, what will you do to lower gas prices and increase affordability, especially for middle and lower income families, while still ensuring adequate road funding?
Well, I think at the end of the day, we are in a tough time, going through a recession early stage, and people are hurting. They are hurting, and I think we are paying the highest gas tax already, as you stated earlier. For me, I will find a way to repeal that. Let's find a way to give some of that money back to the people. We had a $17 billion surplus just this last session. We also got a $1.5 billion surplus as of today. When people are hurting and trying to make a living, I think the last thing you want to do is continue to take money out of their pocket. So I would say that I would go ahead and say, hey, with the 49 cent and also with the 46 cent that's going to be happening in January, let's put it on pause and let's try to give people some money back, put money in their pocket. The thing that we're trying to control with the climate and all that thing, we can still get that done. We will still bounce back out of this recession, and maybe that's the time we start looking at it. I strongly believe when people are hurting, you don't want to continue nickel and dime them and take money out of their pocket. So you imagine if I can have $1 off of gas, per gallon, that could go a long way for a family who's hurting. Thank you.
Claudia, as a state senator, what will you do to lower gas prices and increase affordability, especially for middle and lower income families, while still ensuring adequate road funding?
Thank you. Yes, I too feel the pain at the pump. I don't have a large car, but it's over $76 just to fill it up, and it's amazing how many times you have to go to the gas station to get gas. Roads and bridges and ferries, they're all part of the transportation system. And you can't just roll up a road and say we're not going to fix it for a while, we're just not going to drive on it. We can't ignore bridges that have desperate need for repair and update or even replacement. When our ferry systems break down, we need to repair and replace and continue the operations that are all around transportation, in which that funding goes to all of transportation. And it's important to know and understand that it incorporates all of it. There's also a number of steps taken to increase, as you mentioned, electric vehicles, or even if we work more on hybrid vehicles. I think we all need to pay our fair share. And Washington State has one of the most regressive tax system and tax structure in the entire nation. And how we work and how we move forward of living these taxes, I think we need to incorporate who's paying their fair share and in which area. And I'm fighting for fair taxes. I'm fighting for South King County to get its fair share in road maintenance and preservation and ensuring that we work towards climate change as well.
Thank you. Another concern to our community is related to ongoing supply chain issues. Although I recognize this is a national and really an international problem, there is bipartisan interest in building local supply chain resilience. Claudia, how would you address this issue at the state level?
Supply chain issues. Well, we need to get back to our transportation and looking at the roads, the accessibility for our goods and services to be moved from one area to the next, and working with the system that, provides that access. But we also need to look at how we are impacting our local community, and how we can impact our climate change issues. Those things are important to take into consideration. I would work with local manufacturing. Kent and Auburn have very large manufacturing in the cities. Work with manufacturing, with distribution, work with the local ports, the Port of Seattle, Port of Tacoma, all the ports, to create a system in which we have enough workers on hand. The workforce shortage is not unique to one area. It's felt across all areas, and how we can incentivize both hiring and retention of workers in all areas of the system, so that we have a system that works together and flows together to move our goods and services.
Thank you. Bill, how would you address this issue of supply chain at the state level?
This is a tough one because it really not directed at the state. It's a national. At my job, we have some serious problem of getting goods and service throughout the global world, right? So I think if I have to focus strictly on the Washington State, I'm all about collaboration and working together. When I think about, some of the things we're going through, I think about the chamber, right? Get together with business people, business owner, chambers, and I think the port, and get together, how can we solve this problem together? I don't think there's one person, one party can actually come up with an answer. So for me, I will be working with the subject matter experts who are bringing them into the table, make sure I understand the issues that is impacting them, that is impacting the business. I will reach out to the chambers in the area who have a lot of contact with the business and the community, and just figure, okay, how can we solve this issue for Washington State? We won't fix it for Washington State because this here supply chain is global, and it's impacting and it's touching everything. So for me, it's reaching out and having a conversation with the subject matter experts, with the business, and trying to figure out what's the best approach. Thank you.
Thank you. In the Braver Angels community questions process, members of the community on both sides of the political aisle expressed concern about how the state's limited resources are spent on education. The 47th Legislative District is one of the most ethnically diverse districts in the state. Refugees from all over the world settle here, and more than 70 languages are spoken within its boundaries. The state legislature recently passed House Bill 1153, which requires language access programs to enable communication between teachers, school administrators, and non-English speaking families of students. The legislature still has a lot of work to do in providing guidance and ensuring funding so that school districts can comply with the new legislation. Bill, what will you do to ensure school districts within the 47th district have the funding and support necessary to comply with the requirements of this legislation?
Well, a couple of things, sir. First of all, I strongly support education. I think we should fully fund education for all our kids. As I said earlier, I have served 16 years on the school board of education at Kent, and I have a lot of experience. And on top of that, I have a daughter who's also an educator and a teacher, so I get to hear a lot of what's going on. At the end of the day, our teachers, they need help. They need help in the classroom. We have classrooms that have large sizes of classroom. We have kids in the class who have behavior issues and so on. And when you have a teacher trying to teach a class and you have a student with behavior issues, it really takes away. So me is really trying to make sure we have right support in the classroom, resources in the classroom, more nurses, more counselors, more psychiatrists to be able to help solve the problem and not put it all on the teacher to try to solve all the problem.
So thank you for that answer. Did you want to address specifically the question about language services so that families can communicate with school professionals?
Yes, I would think you give me just 5 more seconds. So I think as far as the language go, I know in the city of Kent school, we have lots of ways of different language where people can teach, whether it's Spanish or Punjabi, and so on. So we need to have multiple language lessons for people can be able to communicate back and forth within their own language. So I can support that.
Thank you. And Claudia, what will you do to ensure school districts within the 47th district have the funding and support necessary to comply with the requirements of this new bill?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very, very fantastic bill and very needed bill and legislation. And as you had mentioned, it's a very diverse community, and we need to celebrate diversity, and we need to embrace diversity. We need to be welcoming of diversity. And having language access is certainly the way in which you can begin that. It's not based on behavioral issues, it's based on whether you're welcoming, if you can come in, if your teacher can understand you. And I would start at the earliest portion of this. I would start in the early learning. I would start in childcare systems that have assistance in providing language access. The interpretation of English written into other languages is important, and to have that funded and to have that available, to have resources available for families and friends and neighbors of a person who speaks a different language. You know, it's all embracing, all encompassing. And so you begin at the early learning level and you go all the way through. And that should be something that you do, that you have compassion about, you're passionate about, and that you want to embrace.
Thank you. So let's just take a slight shift to higher education. Another concern was focused on how secondary education money is invested. While sports are undeniably vital to the educational ecosystem and very clearly draw outside funding to our state's universities, community participants are concerned about the focus on sports that is reflected in the salaries of coaches and what that says about our prioritization of education funding. Claudia, what would you like to see in regard to the landscape of investment in post-secondary education and other educational opportunities like trade schools, community colleges, that sort of thing?
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it's actually very important to know that we have opportunities within our trade schools in terms of different programming, certificate programming that is available on a higher education level. Running Start is a wonderful opportunity for our students to be involved in higher education. But when it comes to sports are different. And you see, and I join you in looking at these $1 million salaries for coaches and assistant coaches that are out there. But that's not funded through state funds. That's funded through the institution. The higher education institution does their fundraising. They have their donors who commit and support and contribute to the sporting occupation. That doesn't come from the state dollars, just so that we clarify that. Investment in higher education, starting again at Running Start, and have the community colleges free tuition for students who are actively seeking their higher education diploma. In career and technical colleges and academic colleges, it's important that we provide that step all the way through.
Thank you. And Bill, what would you like to see in regard to the landscape of investment in post-secondary education, including things like community colleges, trade schools, that sort of thing?
Thank you. I don't know many coaches making $1 million, but if so, I know who they are. I think for me, I think we talk about, not saying something before, at the high school level, we definitely need an apprenticeship program at the high school level. We used to have one many, many years ago. We need to bring that back. We look at our workforce shortage today, right? And I can, as an HR professional, I see that day to day. We need to have an apprenticeship program because everybody that come out of high school is not ready for college. There are some kids who want to go into a trade and start working right away. So for me, let's bring an apprenticeship back into the high school so if the kids are going to be a mechanic and come out making a great salary, or a plumber, or those type of things, it'd be nice to have those back into the school so that kids that come out of high school and they're not ready for college, they can go into the workforce, start making money, and eventually, if they decide to go to college, they can do that. Some of the community colleges already have some of it in place, But I think we definitely need to enhance that because there's a lot of organizations, a lot of companies that are really short on skills. And I think the best way to start it is in the secondary education and make sure is at the trade school and at the college as well.
Thank you. Shifting topics one more time. The 47th District is home to companies like Blue Origin and Boeing that employ many residents in high-skilled jobs, which often necessitate an international workforce. At the same time, Amazon's Tukwila warehouse hires many low-wage workers, and the advent of remote work has seen many more people flooding to the 47th District to live, work, and raise their families. This raises questions within the community about the availability of housing. In the past, there have been discussions of public-private partnerships to address the problem, with Amazon having made a significant commitment to ensuring the development of affordable housing, and the state is currently exploring a variety of government solutions and incentives. Bill, as a state senator, what will you do to ensure the continued development of housing that is affordable to all income brackets?
Thank you for the question. I think as we all know, there's a shortage of about 250,000 homes in the state of Washington as we speak today. I think what we really, and there's a lot of people who not only affordable homes, talk about attainable home. People can be attain a home. For me, I think there are a few people can help us figure this out. I think the realtors have a good idea and the builders. We need Washington State as a senator to make sure we remove some of this red tape. We're paying almost $9,000 per home to the state to build our homes. So let's remove some of the red tape so they can build a home. There's a lot of people who can't afford to buy a $700,000, $800,000, or $900,000 home. Another option that I have talked about many times is a condo. To build a condo right now, is there's too many red tape that the state and builders will not even begin tackling that. Condo is a good way, is a good starter for people who, for the first time home buyers. So, for example, instead of spending $800,000 to $900,000 for a home, because home is very expensive in the state, maybe you can get into a condo, right, build up equity, and you can go from there. Another program they're doing in Renton where they are building houses where people can move into their home at a very low down payment. They build up the equity, they take that equity, and then leave and go to the next place. And then the next person can come in and build up equity in kind of like a rotation program. So there are lots of things we can do to really try to make home affordable and accessible for all. Thank you.
Thank you. And Claudia, as a state senator, what will you do to ensure the continued development of housing that is affordable to all income brackets?
Well, thank you. And it's true, a number of people have been coming down to South King County from Seattle. And Seattle, you know, because of their refusal to invest in more family homes, has caused more people to come down here and causes us to address the issue of affordable housing in our area. And affordable housing is not just whether I can buy a home or not, it's whether I have a place to live, a place to rent, a place to call home. And we need more housing, affordable housing options so that we address workforce. When you talk about the low wage of Amazon workers, we need to have housing that is affordable. Covington is doing a wonderful job in creating affordable workforce family housing. It's not just single units, it's family housing. So you keep your families together. I would also work on increasing that opportunity by increasing funding for the Washington State Housing Trust Fund so that we can build more affordable workforce housing, that we can build transit-oriented housing so that you are near services that is available to you. And also work on developing and working with the Washington Housing Finance Commission to provide assistance to first-time home buyers and to provide training and opportunities and resources that are available so you can increase and work on gathering the financial wealth.
Thank you. And we have a little time. How would you feel about taking some questions from the audience, Carmen? Can we do that?
That is scary. Yes, please.
Well, I can monitor those
Okay.
questions. But I would like to hear from this group of folks, to hear what you're thinking about. Does anyone have a question for these two candidates? And by the way, you have both done an exemplary job this evening in sharing your thoughts. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Here comes the mic.
Oh, I was going to repeat questions, but she's got a mic for you.
So, one of the things that got hurt badly in the COVID crisis are local small businesses. And I'm wondering what anybody at the state level can do to bring back small businesses so that they can be the massive employers that they have been in the past.
That is a great question, and Claudia, we're going to start with you. What will you do as a state senator to help bring back small businesses to our communities?
Well, thank you, and I appreciate that opportunity, and COVID has a devastating effect on a number of industries, large business, small business. It's been on, in terms of the schools, the impact of the mental health of not being able to be there, the impact of crime on small businesses. We witness when we see all these broken windows. And so I know that the Washington State Legislature had reduced or eliminated a number of B&O taxes for small businesses in the state. They provided a number of grants to small businesses for stabilization and to increase the financial health of the business. And they've also worked on addressing business loans and small business development within the Washington State. And that's something I would work locally so that we have the impact from the local businesses to find out what it is they would like, what it is best for them, and how we can serve you as a small business owner.
Thank you. And Bill, what will you do as a state senator to help small businesses?
I think the first thing we need to do before you do anything is restore public safety. That's got to be the first thing we do, because we talk to a lot of small businesses and chamber executive over here, they'll tell you that small businesses are hurt because the public safety and lack of public safety for people doing property damage, breaking into a building. Just last week, we had 2 cars driving to 2 different tobacco companies in Kent. They drove directly into the store, right? I mean, so we have to restore public safety. The criminals need to know that we're going to hold them accountable. I think also, from a small business perspective too, is we want to be able to ease as much tax burden as possible on them. You talk about the car dealership. I talk to many car dealerships, and the B&O tax at the state level is killing them. It is based on the value of that car. If I pay $100,000 car value, that is what the B&O tax is based on. It has nothing to do with the profit that they make from the business. So we need to find ways to ease the B&O tax at the state level, right, to make it easier for those businesses to be able to survive. Make the tax based on the profit, not necessarily based on the value of the car. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have one more very thoughtful, respectful question? Yes, sir.
I'd like to talk about what Bill was just talking about, the tax code of the state of Washington. We're working on a 100-year-old tax code. Is this the tax code that will take us into the 21st century? It's the most regressive in the country. Everybody in this room pays more in a percentage of their income in taxes than Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos. What are your ideas of modernizing the tax structure of the state of Washington?
We'll start with Bill and then go to Claudia.
Bill, TJ, you're absolutely right. It is the most aggressive bureau in the state. For me, I think everything will be on the table. We need to be able to look at it and make sure people are paying their fair amount of taxes. So for me, I'm open to have a discussion. For me, I don't want Washington State to become California. We have a lot of people that used to live in California that can't afford to live there. We are on the verge of doing the same thing with the tax after tax after tax after tax. And we need to put an end to it. So yes, we need to pay our fair share of property tax, but we got to have the state live within their means. As I said earlier, they have a $17 billion surplus just last session here. They have a $1.5 billion surplus, right? And they still find ways to raise taxes on us. Enough is enough. Thank you.
Claudia, how would you propose to reform Washington's tax structure?
Yes, it's true. Washington does have the most regressive tax structure in the nation. We need to have people pay their fair share and to work to making things more equitable. And what I did when I was in the state senate, I sponsored a bill that capped the property tax increase to 1%. And while local governments increased their taxes to the limit, this bill would hold them in check, so they could not raise it more than 1% on the local level. So you have the state and you have the local, and you need to address both. And municipalities and city councils continue to do that and continue to put measures, on the board. And so, in as much as we have a regressive tax system, there's also local actions that are being taken that impact our tax system and who gets taxed and how much. I would want to pursue a more equitable working environment, looking at who are you providing your tax breaks to. There's a lot of folks who don't pay their fair share who also get tax breaks. And that's not fair for everyday working people, everyday person working every day. We need to address our community in that sense and not the big developers or the big corporations who get the big tax breaks.
Thank you. We're going to take one more question from this woman right here. Oh, there's two more. We'll take two more.
Yes, I'd like to know the candidate's position, and this could be a yes or no, or further explanation of the long-term care tax. And would you repeal it or not?
So we will start with Claudia about the long-term care measure that was passed a couple of years ago by the legislature and revised in July of this year. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, long-term care tax and long-term care act that was passed by the state legislature and then was put on hold. But if you get into long-term care, it is not just a generation of people who are going older and need the long-term care. Long-term care addresses issues of people who are born with disabilities, people who require long-term care. There are people who have accidents and incidents that require them to have long-term care. There are veterans out there who are required to have long-term care. And so it's not just what folks like to call the baby boomers or anything like that. This is something that we as a community, as a society, need to address. And when they proposed the Social Security tax decades ago, people weren't for that either. They didn't see the benefit of it all. And so in looking at long-term and being an investment in the future is a smart decision.
Thank you. Bill, what do you think about the Long-Term Care Act?
Well, my first act is to repeal it. I think it should be repealed, right? To me, it's just another tax that we continue to put on our taxpayer. Think about it. So right now, the system's set up and it's already broke. They put it on hold right now to April, in my opinion, wait after the election, but it's already broke. So they put it in place, and we had a House Representative Deborah Edmonds said that, we need to kind of fix it again because there's not enough funding there. If you think about it, I think the cap is right around $36,000, right? My opinion, if you go to a real nice place, you might be able to stay there 3 or 4 months, right? If you go to a place not so nice, you might not come out of there. So for me, I say let the taxpayer keep money in their pocket and we continue to find one tax after another tax after another tax. And pretty soon, we'll be like California, we'll be taxed out and people will be moving out of this beautiful state that I came to in 1976 that I love so much. So, thank you.
Okay, we're going to take two more questions. The woman with the mic first, and then we're coming to you.
Okay, so I've heard that taxpayers pay $19,000 per year per student in the Washington school system. I looked up a local private school, it's $12,000 to $16,000. Yet we consistently hear the private schools have better, higher academic standards, and the public schools are lowering the standards in the name of equity. And I want to know, A, why we keep needing more money to lower our standards in the public school and what you would do to raise the academic standards in the school.
Bill, you're up first. What would you do to raise academic standards while keeping the cost affordable?
Well, I think we need to look at the funding method, right? I think we need to make sure the funding is going in the classroom. I am not convinced that the funding is going into the classroom. We have a lot of high-paid, and not against this, high-paid superintendents and principal. Well, I think our teachers are underpaid and unappreciated. I really do believe that. And I think we need to make sure, in order to get control of the classroom, to make sure the classroom is functioning, you definitely need to have some support people in your classroom to help those teachers out. So one is, let's make sure the funding is going into the classroom where it should be and not in the other places that it probably shouldn't be. And make sure our teacher is adequate paid and our teacher have the resource and the means to do their job.
Thank you. Claudia, how would you ensure that the price per student is affordable while making certain that academic standards are continuing to be raised?
Thank you. Well, that is one of my very passions. As I explained earlier, I'm passionate about serving and taking care of our children. And our children are our most precious resources that we have, and we need to invest in them. The school funding, if you look at it, and I've looked at it as a state senator, is very, very complex. It is not just one source. There are a variety of sources for a variety of different services that go into a classroom. And I believe we need to continue investing in our classrooms, investing in our teachers, investing in our para-educators. We're lowest, Washington's lowest in terms of funding for special education. And as a parent of a developmentally disabled child, I know how hard those people work in the classroom. And it's important for us to continue and support our educational system, beginning with early learning. Again, I want to reinforce my support for children, my support for early learning, my support for teachers, and my support for success for our community.
Thank you. And our last question.
Okay, I may not have my facts straight, but this is about climate change, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the United States and how much we do for climate change is a lot. But if you look at the whole world and what they're doing, how much of a dent are we making in that? And that relates to electric cars and how electric cars are supposed to help with that. I can't afford an electric car. We're wanting them to be phased in. The average working class person will not be able to afford an electric car, yet we're saying that's supposed to help climate change. And so that's kind of confusing to me on the push for electric cars. Where are they going to get their energy? Because we're trying to do something with energy as well. What are we going to do with the batteries? What about the charging stations? Those have to be run on something. So it's about the electric cars and this push for climate change and what's really going to work.
So I think the question is, what role does Washington State play in helping to address climate change? And what will you, as a state senator, Claudia, this question's coming to you first, what will be your position around the governor's proposal that all cars sold post 2035 will be electric? I think it's 2035, it might be 2030.
I think it's 2035.
I think it is too.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's what the governor had put forward. But emissions, fossil fuel emissions, do contribute to climate change. And even though these are small changes as an individual can make to switch from gasoline power to a hybrid to an electric is a goal. You know, in reality, I too cannot afford an electric car. But I believe the state is taking steps to ensure that the public transportation fleet changes to electric, who are very much on the roads throughout all the departments within Washington State and all of their agencies. And so, yeah, we have to look at increasing resources for the charging stations to have access and have a fully charged car if you do have an electric car. But I think there are other things that we can do to address both the electric cars as well as the emissions. How we can, provide, like in Mercer Island, they have the Mercer Island lid, right? That's the lid. I-90 goes through Mercer Island and they have a lid, which reduces the noise pollution, reduces the air pollution, and it increases their access across Mercer Island. And we need to invest in our communities in which these local roads and state highways have in terms of air pollution, noise pollution, and increased access.
Thank you. Bill, do you remember the question?
I think so.
Okay, good. Because I'm not sure I can.
I'm sure if I don't, Bill, let me know.
Okay.
I think a good question. I think climate change, I think is real. I think we need to look at it. And I think you're right, Washington State is probably doing more than other states. I think to go to all electric, as the governor said, probably not going to happen. You talk to Elon Musk. I mean, the infrastructure, it takes a while to set up the infrastructure. Can you imagine going from one side of the state to the other side of the state? How many of infrastructure need to be in place to make that happen? So I don't see it happen. It's a goal. We're probably not going to reach it, but there's other ways too. I mean, I think we have green vehicles. It's something we can look at. I know Kenworth Trucking Company is in the process of testing that right now. We have hydrogas vehicles that we are also looking at testing. So it's not all electric because, you're right. The price of electric car is sky high. I couldn't afford one either. The batteries is sky high. So there are more than just electric. We look at hydrogas, hydrogen, those type of things also need to be on the table as well.
Thank you. Okay, my new friends, Claudia and Bill, we're down to your closing statements. What else would you like these voters to know about you before filling out their ballots on or before November 8th? And Bill, we're going to start with you.
Okay, once again, thank everyone for being here. A couple things I'm going to talk about before I close. The one thing I really spend a lot of time on, and I think it impacts all of us, is what we continue to do to raise taxes. And I think we need to find a way, as a senator, to help the government live within their means. If I'm short on my paycheck or for doing stuff or you short, you can't go to your companies that need more money. I don't think the government should work that way either. Live within your means. You have a $17 billion surplus, right? Let's find ways. If California can find ways to give money back, right? You would think Washington State, we all have a tendency to follow them, except when that one issue they decide not to follow California on, right? That's kind of what a coincidence. But we need to find ways to give money back. And I always say that, my counterpart over here, there's quite a few bills that she was in place, that she put in place that really prevent retail crime tax. That was Senate Bill 6167. Also, there was a bill 2261 where we're talking about preventing full-day kindergarten that she put in place and she voted no on. So there may be a change of heart, and that's okay, but I would suggest that look at the history of what I did on the city council, my voting record, look at the past history of what she did while she was voting as a senator in the Senate, and make a decision based on that. For me, I care about this state. I want this state to be the best state it can. I want my kids and grandkids to be able to live here and stay here and not have to move out of state. And by doing that, we need to make sure we keep our eyes on, all these heavy tax increases keep going. We need to make sure crime is under control, that our police officers can do their job, keep us safe, keep people safe, hold them accountable at the same time, and also we need to make sure we got housing for people to live in. Those will be the things that I focus on. And last but not least, education. We need to revamp our education system. I'm Bill Boyce, running for state senator. Thank you very much, and I appreciate you being here tonight.
So thank you for citing your sources. I do appreciate that you cited your sources, and anyone can take a look at voting records of both of these candidates. They both held elected office. Claudia, your closing statement.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate being here. I've been to a number of candidate forums with Bill Boyce, and this is, I believe, the last one before election. We only have 2 weeks left. But I want you to know that I am a active, working homeowner, engaged in community, and have been living in Kent for over 21 years. I've raised my children here, and I have a deep commitment to serving my community. And in terms of what Bill Boyce said is, you know, you can't balance your checkbook, then how can the state do it? The state budget is extremely complex, and the state budget has a number of funding sources that may come in this year, may not come in next year. The state budget has to plan for caseload in increases. So you may have a caseload of increases in the prison system, or in the foster care system, or in the health system, and you have to plan for that. And just saying, you know, well, I'm done, is not reality. The state budget is very, very complex, and you need to plan for the future and serve the public. And again, I'm Claudia Kauffman. I'm running for the state senate. I've been working in government relations. I am not a lobbyist. That has been said a number of times. I've never been a lobbyist. I'm not a lobbyist. I worked in government relations for over 21 years. I'm a former state senator. And I bring to you my wealth of experience, my knowledge, my understanding, my number of knowledge and relationships with people and organizations and businesses that I will hit the ground running when I join the state senate. So yes, Claudia Kauffman, state senate. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's just say thank you one more time to both of our candidates for your participation in this evening's conversation. It's really important that the people you wish to represent hear directly from you. So I want to say thank you to both of you for this wonderful conversation that you have had with us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
We should thank you as well, too.
And we're not done with the thank yous. I also want to acknowledge the Kent, Covington, and Auburn area chambers of commerce for bringing this forum to our community this evening. And a great big thanks to all of you for taking the time this evening to be here. This is where democracy starts. Thank you for taking your time to be here, to learn about the candidates, to learn more about the issues, and to be an informed voter. But this is just the beginning of your work. Whoever gets elected on November 8th needs you to show up on their doorstep in Olympia, on their doorstep here in the 47th District, and stay engaged. Thank you for joining us this evening. Have a great night.